My beautiful girlfriend was using me, so I used her back. My girlfriend used me for money, so I secretly used her connections to get revenge, and I got paid handsomely for it. Now my ex is trying to win me back. I, Ryan, 29M, had been dating my fiancée, Lena, 25F, for almost a year. Lena was an aspiring model and insanely gorgeous, so much so that, for the first few months, I could barely believe I was with her. My friends couldn't believe it either. I'm just an average-looking guy, and while people say that looks aren't everything, it still felt surreal to be dating someone this attractive. It felt too good to be true. I was just happy to be with her, but around 6 months into our relationship, she started dropping hints about wanting to get married. By then, I was completely smitten, so I would have done anything she asked of me. So, against my better judgment, I proposed to her at the 7-month mark. She said yes immediately. My friends and family were shocked at how fast everything was moving, but they didn't question it much. As long as I was happy, they supported me. For the most part, our relationship was great. We had ups and downs, but I believed our love was genuine, at least for me. But 3 months ago, I learned the truth. One day, Lena invited her friends over to help with wedding planning. I was feeling awful that day, so I had been napping in the bedroom. After a while, I got up to grab something to eat, but I froze when I heard Lena and her friends talking in the living room. I was just out of sight, but I could hear everything. They were talking about me. At first, I just stood there, feeling humiliated as they joked about my insecurities. But then, Lena herself joined in. She laughed and said she had bagged herself a sugar daddy with no looks and was basically living the dream. They all burst into laughter. I felt my face burn with embarrassment. I turned around and went back to my room, fuming. I didn't even want to hear the rest of the conversation. My insides were on fire. For a second, I considered breaking up with her immediately. But then I thought. No. She had been using me. So why shouldn't I use her? I work as a software developer, so I make good money. That's why I was the one paying for everything, the rent, the groceries, the bills, because Lena couldn't afford to. She was just starting out as a model and barely made enough to support herself. Her parents weren't wealthy enough to fund her expensive lifestyle either. She moved in with me just 2 months after we started dating, saying she was struggling to pay rent. I let her stay with me, thinking it was temporary. It wasn't. Ever since then, I had been paying for everything, her Uber rides, designer clothes, expensive makeup, salon appointments, you name it. So, in a way, she wasn't wrong, I was acting like a sugar daddy. But after overhearing that conversation, I thought about just breaking up with her. Then, I had a better idea. I have a cousin, Camila, 23F, who was also trying to break into the modeling world. She was rich, her dad was a big-name businessman, but he did not approve of her career choice. So, despite having money, Camila had no industry connections. I wanted to help her, but Lena had forbidden me from introducing her to any of her contacts. Lena told me that the modeling world was too competitive and that Camila could end up being a threat to her career. So, Camila had to struggle on her own. That is, until I decided to change that. I made a deal with Camila. I'd send her all the insider information that Lena had access to, and in return, she'd split her earnings with me 50/50ths. That's when I started keeping track of Lena's auditions, contacts, and gigs, all without her knowing. Camila started getting gig after gig, and every time she booked a job thanks to me, she sent me $1,500. She was angry at her dad for refusing to support her, so in a way, she enjoyed paying me. She saw it as proving him wrong. And honestly, I wasn't going to complain. If she wanted to funnel her resentment into paying me big bucks, I was fine with that. Month after month, I was raking in cash, all while pretending to be the perfect boyfriend. But in reality, I felt nothing for Lena anymore. I still didn't dump her because I needed more time to keep using her connections for Camila's career. Other than that, I kept our interactions to a minimum. I even told my parents a week after the betrayal that I had zero intention of marrying Lena. They didn't know the full story, but they did know that there would be no wedding. But Lena? She had no idea. She kept planning, pestering me to book the venue, hire the vendors, and send out invitations. And I kept lying. I said, yeah, babe, I'll do it tomorrow. This week, everything unraveled. First, Camila signed with a top modeling agency, one of the best in the country. She was ecstatic and sent me an extra $5,000 as a thank you. Second, Lena asked me if the wedding invitations had been sent. I figured, why keep the act going? So I told her. I told her everything. I told her I hadn't made a single wedding arrangement. I told her I had heard every single thing she said about me to her friends. And I told her that, since she was so happy calling me her sugar daddy, I decided to act like one, and use her for my own gain. At first, she thought I was joking. Then she started screaming, crying, and accusing me of betrayal. I just laughed and said, now you know how it feels. She called me a monster. I told her she had no right to play the victim. She packed her bags that night and left. I didn't stop her. But this wasn't over yet. 2 days later, Lena texted me. She told me she still loved me and wanted to work things out. She said she missed me terribly and couldn't imagine life without me. For a moment, I actually considered apologizing, until I got a message from one of her friends. Her friend sent me a screenshot of Lena texting their group chat. She wrote, "I need a place to crash until my loser ex takes me back or until I find someone new." That was her real plan. She had no intention of fixing things. She just needed a free place to live. I dodged a bullet. I never replied to Lena's text. Instead, I blocked her. On everything. I was ready to move on with my life, but she wasn't done with me yet. A few days later, Lena managed to get my number from a different phone. She started threatening me. She said that if I didn't let her move back in, she would tell everyone that I had used her contacts to help Camila's modeling career. I hope she realized that unless she told the whole story, it would just look like I was being a good cousin. Did she really think people would sympathize with her? I told her that if she spread lies about me, I would expose everything she did. She didn't reply after that. I thought maybe she had finally given up. I was wrong. The very next day, Lena showed up at my workplace. The receptionist called me and said there was a woman demanding to see me. Apparently, she refused to leave. I had no choice but to go downstairs and talk to her. We went to a nearby cafe to avoid causing a scene. But the moment we sat down, she lost it. She started crying, yelling, and saying I had been unfair to her. Then, she said something that stunned me. She told me that I had spoiled her rotten. That if I had stood up to her more, she might have been more attracted to me. That I was too weak-willed, too average-looking, and too insecure, which made it easy for her to boss me around without guilt. She claimed that's why she said those horrible things about me to her friends. But now? Now that she knew I had been secretly playing her, she was suddenly more attracted to me. She could finally take me seriously as a real man. I sat there, absolutely stunned. Was this her last-ditch attempt to win me back? Or did she actually believe this? I had to physically stop myself from laughing in her face. It was so ridiculous that I couldn't even process it. I told her I'd think about what she said and left. Of course, I had no intention of ever speaking to her again. When I got home, I saw that Lena had sent me more messages. She wanted me to promise that I'd call her later. That's another thing that always bothered me about her. She used to baby talk to me whenever she was in trouble. It was so gross. I ignored her texts and went to bed. But the next morning, she called me from yet another number. I picked up, because I wanted to end this once and for all. She asked me if I had thought about what she said. I told her point blank that I hadn't. And that even if someone held a gun to my head, would never take her back. That's when I snapped. I told her everything I thought about her. I told her she was a pathetic mess who was only trying to get back with me because she was too lazy to get her life together. She screamed at me, saying that the only reason I had money now was because I had used her contacts to help Camila's career. I told her that unlike her, Camila actually worked hard. Unlike her, Camila didn't just expect things to be handed to her. She called me a bunch of names, but I didn't care. I just hung up on her. I blocked that number, too. I thought that was the last of it. But I was wrong, again. The next day, I started getting messages from mutual friends. Lena had been telling people I cheated on her. That I had been sneaking around with Camila behind her back. That I had broken her heart and ruined her life. I just laughed. Anyone who actually knew me wouldn't believe her. And besides, I had proof. I still had the screenshot of her messages, where she admitted she just wanted a free place to live. I sent it to everyone who asked. Her plan backfired immediately. People started calling her out for trying to manipulate the situation. Some of her own friends stopped talking to her. She lost a ton of followers on Instagram. And just like that, her reputation started crumbling. She had no one left to turn to. She had played herself. That was the last straw. I decided to move out of my apartment and find a better place. I had made so much money from my deal with Camila that I could easily afford it. On top of that, I was due for a raise at work. It was time for a fresh start. My friends were shocked when I told them the wedding was officially off. Some of them thought I had been too harsh. Others thought she deserved it. But when they saw the screenshot, they all agreed, she was just using me. And I had every right to get back at her. For a few weeks, everything was quiet. Lena had finally stopped contacting me, and I had moved into a new apartment across the city. I thought I was finally done with her. Then, out of nowhere, she found a way to contact me again. This time, she sent me a long message, playing the victim. She claimed she had lost everything because of me. She said she had nowhere to live, that people were turning against her, and that I had ruined her future. She told me that, despite everything that happened, she still loved me and wanted to make things work. That we could start over. That she could be the girlfriend I always wanted. I just stared at my phone in disbelief. After everything, she still thought I would take her back. I didn't even reply. I just blocked her number again. A few days later, one of my friends sent me a post from Lena's Instagram. She had made a long, dramatic caption about how she had been betrayed by the love of her life. She painted herself as the innocent victim and claimed I had cheated on her, stolen from her, and ruined her career. But the comments? They weren't on her side. People were calling her out, saying she had been exposed for using me. Some even mentioned the screenshot I had shared. She had completely lost control of the narrative. She ended up deleting the post within an hour. Then, she deactivated her Instagram. It was finally over. It took me a long time to process everything that happened. At first, I was angry. Then, I just felt exhausted. For months, I had been trapped in a relationship where I was constantly being used. And when I finally got my revenge, I felt satisfied at first, but eventually, that feeling faded. I realized that I had been too focused on revenge instead of walking away sooner. I shouldn't have wasted so much energy trying to get back at her. I should have just left and moved on immediately. But at the same time, she had it coming. I had given her everything, and she had mocked me behind my back. She didn't deserve my kindness. And she definitely didn't deserve a second chance. Now that some time has passed, I've started reflecting on everything. I realized that I had major self-esteem issues. I ignored all the red flags just because I was so obsessed with the fact that a beautiful woman wanted to be with me. I let myself be walked all over just because I was insecure about my looks. And that's something I need to fix. I'm not dating anyone right now. Instead, I'm going to therapy and focusing on becoming a better version of myself. I need to heal before I get into another relationship. Because I don't want to make the same mistakes again. Final thoughts. Looking back, I don't regret what I did. Lena got exactly what she deserved. She tried to use me, so I used her back, and I walked away richer because of it. She, on the other hand, she lost everything. Her relationship, her reputation, her social media following, gone. She played a stupid game and won a stupid prize. But as for me, I'm finally free. And I'm never letting anyone use me like that again. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.